Throughout the past year, people have asked for my thoughts about my cousin Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and his presidential campaign. I did not comment, not only because I was serving in a government position as United States Ambassador to Australia, but because I have never wanted to speak publicly about my family members and their challenges. But now that Bobby has been nominated by President Trump to be Secretary of Health and Human Services, a position that would put him in charge of the health of the American people, I feel an obligation to speak out. I've known Bobby my whole life. We grew up together. It's no surprise that he keeps birds of prey as pets, because Bobby himself is a predator.
That was Caroline Kennedy, RFK Jr.'s cousin, who does not think that RFK Jr. will make America healthy again. In fact, you just heard her call him a predator. She sent a letter to the Senate Committee on Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions in which she branded RFK Jr. a predator and someone who's addicted to attention and power. I mean, I feel like Washington's the perfect place for that, but nonetheless. She also read that letter aloud and released it as a video, which you just saw a clip of. Now, the most shocking portion of the video is an allegation that Caroline makes about how RFK Jr. treats animals, and this is so gross, so I just want to give you a trigger warning. Here it is.
He's always been charismatic, able to attract others through the strength of his personality, his willingness to take risks and break the rules. I watch his younger brothers and cousins follow him down the path of drug addiction. His basement, his garage, his dorm room were always the center of the action, where drugs were available, and he enjoyed showing off how he put baby chickens and mice in a blender to feed to his hawks. It was often a perverse scene of despair and violence.
Can't do it. I can't do it. Anyway, she also spoke out against his anti-vaccine position, which many of us have already heard a lot about, but let's hear what she has to say about it.
Today, while he may encourage a younger generation to attend AA meetings, Bobby is addicted to attention and power. Bobby preys on the desperation of parents of sick children, vaccinating his own kids, while building a following hypocritically discouraging other parents from vaccinating theirs. Even before he fills this job, his constant denigration of our healthcare system and the conspiratorial half-truths he's told about vaccines, including in connection with Samoa's deadly 2019 outbreak of measles, have cost lives. And now we know that Bobby's crusade against vaccination has benefited him in other ways too. His ethics report makes clear that he will keep his financial stake in a lawsuit against an HPV vaccine.
So I'm gonna get into the details about the HPV vaccine and RFK Jr.'s involvement with a legal firm that sued the makers of the vaccine in just a moment. But before I do, Cenk, what are your thoughts? I mean, we've heard some of these allegations before. We've also heard in the past that he was not so kind to animals, but not to this detailed level.
Yeah. So look, I'm super conflicted about this, but conflicted in strongly on both sides, not moderately. So let me explain. On the one hand, man, people who kill small animals.
Oh, I can't.
Right, watch out. And so this is now like.
It's not just killing the animals. It's, according to her, getting some sort of pleasure in taking these small animals and blending them to make feed for the horse.
Right, now remember, that's for the hawk.
For the hawk, I'm sorry.
Yeah, but it was a long, long time ago. So look, I know the people who are outsiders, and at this point, Bobby Kennedy is an outsider given his views, are always attacked on their personal life. It's always a character assassination, etc. So this one's a brutal one, and it's coming from inside the house. And so just on a personal level, a family member putting that big a dagger in your back, it just makes me super uncomfortable. Now, on the other hand, does Bobby Kennedy have massive, this is not I've used this analogy before, needle in a haystack. Whenever you create trouble, to look for the needle and pretend that it's the haystack. In Bobby's case, there's kind of a haystack full of controversy. It's not just, oh, I found a needle or two. The haystack's filled with needles of problematic things that he's done in his personal life. Now, more conflicted, so that's both directions. I hate that she did it, but I hate the stuff that she's talking about that he did, right? So now on the policy stuff, we've been waiting so long for the pharmaceutical companies to get challenged, but that's the thing with the Trump administration. They diagnose a problem accurately so that they could win. That's what Trump has done. The average American is mad at the establishment. They're mad at the media, and they're mad at the drug companies. These are all things that are true. They're mad at the military-industrial complex that drives us into wars. They're mad at the corruption. All true. Then they give the wrong answer. Like instead of saying, hey, drug companies, why are you guys charging us prices that we can't even negotiate? That's outrageous. It's against the free markets. It's a layup. Over 80% of Americans, probably, I think might be 89% of Americans would be in favor of stopping that practice.
Right.
And my God, Trump would be so popular if he did that. Bobby Kennedy would be so popular if they did that. Let alone what we talked about earlier in the show. Why do we give research to the pharmaceutical companies, but we don't get any of the profits? They get all the profits, we get all the costs. That doesn't make sense. There's so many ways to challenge the pharmaceutical companies that could be productive. Instead, we're challenging them on the vaccines that save lives. What are we doing? What are we doing?
Yeah, it's not about Big Pharma's greed. It's not about the fact that they collect a ton of money from American taxpayers for the research and development of the drugs that they then turn around and price gouge us on. That's not what they're focusing on. And that's the issue, right? So it's the same issue that I have with the GOP's framing of corporations bad, right? They don't care about corporate greed. They don't care about corporations abusing or mistreating their workers. They don't care about corporations necessarily outsourcing their jobs, right? But they don't like the DEI policies. They don't like the woke policy. So they'll consider themselves anti-corporate. They'll brand themselves as warriors against corporations. But they're really fine with all these abuses that victimize Americans across the country. They just don't like the woke stuff.
No, it's slightly worse than that. They know, Tucker Carlson does, Donald Trump does, that the American people are starting to hate corporations.
Yeah, starting.
Well, yeah, maybe near the end. But so would they take that justifiable anger at our reduced wages and all the ways that they kind of veal pen us into these indentured servant lives, right? And instead of actually fixing those problems, they go, oh, no, your anger towards the corporations directed at DEI. That's the real problem. No, guys, you can be angry at DEI. That's a separate issue and that's a good debate. But that doesn't have anything to do with the 99% of terrible things corporations are doing to you.
Yes, exactly.
Right, and sapping you of all of your power so you can't negotiate higher wages, et cetera. They don't want you to, so that attack against DEI, while if you're on the right, that might sound really attractive to you, is actually to help corporations so that you don't focus on the much bigger problems that they're creating.
I totally agree. And look, I think DEI, I don't want people to mistake DEI for, regular protections against discriminatory practices at the workplace. DEI is a different thing, right? And so I think in recent years, unfortunately, it has created hostile work environments. It has not made the work environment better for workers. So I'm actually sympathetic to some of the criticisms toward DEI. However, that is not the main issue in corporate America. And that's not the main thing that's making workers miserable in America. And so let's get to some of the details in regard to RFK Jr. and potential conflicts of interest pertaining to lawsuits he's been involved in with pharmaceutical companies and their vaccines. So apparently, the conflict of interest that Caroline Kennedy was referring to is the fact that Kennedy made it seem as though he would continue collecting fees from referring clients to a law firm as they were pursuing a lawsuit against Merck over their Gardasil vaccine. Gardasil is the vaccine to prevent HPV. And the allegation in the suit is that Merck did not do an adequate job in informing the public about possible side effects of that vaccine. So RFK Jr. got involved in that lawsuit by essentially finding clients that could be part of the suit. And he collects fees as a result of doing that. Now, Wisner Braum is the law firm in question. And in his disclosures, he made it clear that he is in fact collecting fees from them. And just to give you some information about the side effects that, again, this law firm is claiming Merck didn't do a good job disclosing. They talk about premature ovarian failure, dizziness, lightheadedness, a spike in your heart rate. But nonetheless, RFK Jr. has made a pretty penny from this legal challenge to Merck and by supplying the clients for the lawsuit. The arrangement with Wisner Braum has earned Kennedy more than $2.5 million in the past 2 years. So the argument here is, well, I mean, there's a conflict of interest. If you're going to be the head of a government agency that's making regulatory decisions about vaccines, while you're collecting fees from a law firm suing a pharmaceutical company over a vaccine, well, then we have a conflict of interest here. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I don't mind that lawsuit. I find it interesting, and we have to find a way to keep corporations accountable. And on vaccines, he makes an interesting point that they get a liability shield. I know why they need it. But I also know that a liability shield is dangerous because it then allows them to take more chances with our safety, et cetera. So I think that's an issue that should be debated, and I hope it gets an open debate. But keeping that financial interest while you have a very direct effect on that policy is definitely a problem. So that's no question, it's a conflict of interest. What you do, are they gonna care? They're not gonna care.
So Kennedy has said that he will divest his interest from any cases involving the federal government. So that's what he says.
Okay, well that's a little bit better.
Yeah, I think it's better. I mean, yeah. So we'll see if that happens. We'll see if he gets confirmed, right? So right now it appears that the Republican Party is completely on board with Donald Trump's nominees. Pete Hegseth, I think, was the shakiest one. Actually, the person that I hear the most protests about from Republican lawmakers is Tulsi Gabbard.
Yeah.
She might actually have the hardest time in getting confirmed, mostly because of her anti-war rhetoric in the past. Also, the fact that she met with Bashar al-Assad when he was the dictator of Syria. So who knows? We'll see what happens.
Yeah, there's a couple of things she said. She's also claimed that she was against warrantless wiretapping. Now she says she is in favor of warrantless wiretapping.
Unfortunately.
But some of the senators don't believe her, and they're like, no, I think that I'm not convinced enough that you want to violate American privacy, and you must violate American privacy. And she's like, I swear I will, I swear I will.
Yeah.
So but I think that they're not sure. The Bashar al-Assad thing is probably the most problematic thing. Her main thing is she's got to go convince those senators, don't worry, I will serve Israel. I don't worry, I hate Muslims. Don't worry, I've been in favor of torturing Muslims, drone strikes on Muslims. I'm in a Hindu cult that hates Muslims. Don't worry, because they're a little worried that she did not follow Israel's orders in going to meet with Bashar al-Assad. And mind you, I think that it was a weird meeting. I don't know why she did that.
Yeah, I mean, we were critical of that meeting as well. But I want to be clear about something. The beef I've had with Tulsi Gabbard in the past was when she was presenting herself as a progressive, when she clearly wasn't. Her record made it clear that she wasn't. And so I didn't like that dishonesty, but there are parts to her that I do like. So her previous stance, and I hope that it's still her current stance against warrantless wiretapping, is a good thing. I like that.
Yeah, well, I would have loved that, but she threw that in the garbage to appease Republican senators.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens with that. But already I'm hearing a lot of protests from Republican lawmakers. But all they need is a simple majority in the Senate to confirm any of Trump's nominees, as we just learned with Pete Hegseth.